Welcome to the Mindful Healers podcast with Dr. Jessie Mahoney.
And Dr. Ni-Cheng Liang.
We are physicians and leaders who are also trained in coaching, yoga, mindfulness, and integrative medicine.
We are also mothers, spouses, sisters, daughters, aunts, and friends.
In this podcast, we share candid, heart-centered, loving, science-based, thoughtful, and often fun conversations about the challenges life throws at us.
With our collective experience of over 30 years in physician and personal wellness, we reflect and offer pearls of wisdom for navigating life's challenges with more ease.
From parenting, marriages, money scarcity, cancer survivorship, uncertainty, challenges in practicing medicine, we cover it all.
We invite you to refresh your perspective and empower yourself with mindset, mindfulness, and other well-being tools that actually work. A quick reminder that nothing in our podcast is medical advice.
Welcome to today's episode, Make It Happen, Wellness Funding Simplified. It could also be called More Dreams Fulfilled, how I helped physicians get wellness programs funded and how you can too. In 2024, I fulfilled a long-time dream of leading fully funded, grant-supported wellness programs and physician retreats. And by that, I mean programs and retreats paid for by departments, organizations, and philanthropy grants. What was beautiful about these programs is that for years, I have watched hospitals and medical groups spend money on what I will call ineffective wellness programs, PowerPoints in conference rooms or stress balls or one-time lectures. And while always well-intended, they didn't necessarily create meaningful change. And as someone who worked in wellness for a long time, I believed that there had to be a better way. And it's challenging within institutions, which are like big cruise ships and container ships, to make a difference and do things differently, especially when the culture of medicine says that we learn important things in conference rooms with PowerPoints. And the culture of medical conferences is a very specific setup. Now, we should know that when we have been approaching wellness that way and there isn't change, that doing the same thing and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. But in medicine, we often do the same thing and expect a different result, not so much in the caregiving part of medicine, but culturally in medicine and the way that we approach training and work hours and physician wellness in general. So I had always believed that there was a better way and hoped that ultimately we could find a better way to pitch effective programming and get it paid for. Because as we talked about a few podcasts ago, when you speak the language of the C-suite and you speak the language of those funding it, they actually do want to pay for it because physician wellness programming is cost effective. It's good for patient care. It's good for quality of care. It's good for reputation. It's good for business. When you have well physicians, you have healthier patients and everybody's happier and healthier. So what I now know after the last year is that it is possible to do this. And many of you know that I have worked with Stanford coaching fellows over the last 5 years. And there we actually do have funded programming for fellows. It's often easier in an education or GME environment to get things paid for trainees and to use funding, wellness funding creatively. And in fact, many programs are desperate to have effective programming. So I will say that the key to getting things funded is to have an effective program. Nobody wants to fund something that isn't evidence-based or proven to make a difference. But very often they don't have the ability to run a program like that. They don't have the capacity to run a program like that. And that's really where I came in by offering something that was proven to be effective. And then there's a lot of skill in pitching it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how to do that. So over the last couple of years, I was fortunate enough to work with someone who worked in leadership at a local healthcare organization. And together, after we did her coaching, we wrote a philanthropy grant, which led to a wellness retreat. It was amazing. And before it even happened, that retreat, when this fully funded, grant funded retreat was offered to physicians, it sold out in 2 hours. And we were actually able to ask for additional funding for a second one because there was proven, documented interest. And we were able to get that funding as well. And so in 2024, we did 2 retreats with fantastic evaluations. And so 100% of the people who came found the retreats helpful, and 100% said they would recommend it to their colleagues. So we did do a pre-survey and a post-survey, nothing complex, to show, to get people's exact feedback. And with the proof of concept is actually how we were able to get a second grant funded for 2025 for even more retreats, and to include a leadership workshop, which I'm inspired to record this podcast today because I gave that leadership workshop last night. And the idea is that when you equip physician leaders with tools to support their teams and you educate them with the same framework that you're educating physicians with, it makes a huge difference. That's where they can support their teams more effectively. They can send people who need to be coming to retreats and need shifts and changes in perspective to function more effectively and healthily. They can know who to send. And it means that everyone's on the same page. And so not only did we do this session last night, which was full of engagement and questions, and when you're giving this session to leaders with the context of an already built program, and all you need to do is tell the doctors or clinicians or APPs, whoever the program is built for, to sign up and come, it's an easy sell, and it helps them as leaders, and it helps the people they lead, and it helps patients, and it helps the organization. So it's really a win-win-win-win-win if you're presenting it in that way. And so this next part of this program is actually 3 retreats here in Nicasio for this group over the course of the year. And we have actually already put these up for registration, and 2 of them are full and 1 of them is half full. And we only put them out about a week to 10 days ago. And 1 of them is many, 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 many months away. And so we anticipate that they will all be full. And the high level of interest is also what leads to further funding, that and the positive evaluations. And so what I'll offer is, when you create something that works and you create something that has positive feedback and positive change, you can grow it. And so while this is my story of a dream coming true around this one program, I'm going to share a couple of other things that we've made happen over the last few years also. It's somewhat of a roadmap for how other people can get wellness programs funded. And for any of you who wants to have me do your wellness program, this is my specialty. It's something I love. And as many of you know, I've worked in physician wellness for now 25 years. So this is something that when you have someone who has this level of credibility, it also makes it easy for leaders to fund. So if you happen to be in the Bay Area and you want to do a retreat here, I'm available to help you do that, or you want me to come and do a program at your institution. And I actually have people asking me to come across the country now to do retreats in other states as well. And while it's a little bit trickier, and my culinary medicine expert isn't necessarily available there, we can still do amazing, amazing things. And sometimes it has to begin simply with a talk to leadership. So I came up with some steps to share with all of you, with the hope that we can get more institutions to fund effective wellness programming, remembering that it is a gift for all of our colleagues and a gift for our patients, and really a gift for the world if people who work in medicine are healthy. People who work in medicine deserve to be healthy and deserve care themselves. The carers need care. They need to be healthy. So step number 1 is to actually believe it's possible. And so often people say, it's not possible. My place won't do it. There's no precedent. It's never been done. We have a funding shortage. And my thought is, we have to believe it's possible, or it isn't possible. And just because someone says no at first doesn't mean it's not possible. I always think, not yet, not now, but it's not no. And so we are trained to think that people are going to say no. We're trained to expect pushback. And oftentimes we don't ask if we think the answer won't be yes. So you have to 100% believe within you that this is possible. And you actually ask from the energy of that belief. And I'm hoping that this podcast will give you that belief that funding for good physician wellness exists. The key is knowing where to look, how to create it, and expecting and believing it can happen. And so this one program in the Bay Area happened, but I also have done work with Stanford, and that is fully paid for those people who participate. I was able to do a program for women in medicine fellows on the other side of the country, also paid for by a grant. And last year, we had a department for a local academic hospital that paid in full for a retreat for all of their doctors to come together to work on morale and work on retention. And that's where the funding can often come from, because if you're having trouble retaining, or you're getting people to stay, or you're having trouble recruiting, organizations are interested in that. Many departments have discretionary funding too. And this isn't necessarily what they're thinking about, but if you pitch it from the right perspective, as we talked about, that's where things can make a difference. And I will say, pitching it to the right people and being thoughtful and creative is really important. But the key thing here is that you have to believe it's possible, and you have to know that what you are pitching works. And so every time I've had something funded, it's because somebody had worked with me individually, usually a leader, but not necessarily. And then they can come back to their group and their leader. And because they've experienced the work, they are better able to share its value with their leaders and the people who you are hoping to fund it. So personal experience is really, really valuable. So step 2, besides believing it's possible, is actually engaging in whatever you want to offer first. So experiencing the work first, and then being the example. So the most effective way to get wellness programs funded is to experience them yourself first. So many, many people who have coached with me will be able to get a program approved for where they work, or something for their department, or to be much more effective advocate for working with me and bringing me in to give a keynote talk or to give a grand rounds. That's usually how it goes. So when you have been to a retreat yourself, or when you've worked with a coach, or when you have engaged in some kind of transformative wellness programming, you don't just believe that wellness works, you actually embody the benefits. And when other people see you changed, they want more of that. They want to know how that happened. And so it makes it much easier for leadership to say yes. And it makes it also easier for you to advocate, because you are healthier and more well. We don't get much approved when we come at things from complaining. We get things funded and supported when we advocate effectively, when we're strategic, when we're calm and grounded. And so that takes you engaging in wellness, and also being able to be a spokesperson for a very specific experience. So step 3 is to, after you have engaged in your experience, you have done your coaching, or you've worked with me at a retreat, or you've heard me speak, you share your experience, and you tell people about it. And when leadership sees and feels the impact of these things, they are much more likely to fund it. So you end up telling your story. You talk to your chief, you talk to your wellness committee, you talk to your department head, or if you happen to be in leadership, you talk to the CEO, or you talk to the person who's in charge of people, or you talk to the person who's in charge of physician education, because those people actually do have access to funds. I also believe that physician wellness actually can tap into like quality of care funds. It can tap into care experience funds, because well physicians provide higher quality care. They have higher patient satisfaction scores. So there are funds in those arenas, and there are that you can tap into creatively. You have to write a grant differently. You have to pitch things differently. But this is where a depth of experience and knowledge around physician wellness can really make you a much better advocate. So share your experience. The other thing is invite leadership to attend. Encourage one of them to go to the retreat that you went to, so that they get to experience it firsthand. encourage one of them to sign up for coaching or tell them things that you learned. So, but inviting them in can be really, really helpful. When they experience it firsthand, their perspective shifts. They get out of the nothing can work, the negativity, the catastrophizing, the scarcity mindset themselves, and they're much more open to leading culture change. And many of you have heard recently, I've been giving a lot of leadership workshops and talking about leading with a lens to wellness. And so leaders cannot lead with a lens to wellness if they are not well. And so inviting your leaders into something that you found, that you discovered that's helpful, makes you look good, makes them look good, and it makes it much easier to advocate. So when you then have a leader who is healthy and has experienced this, they can be much more strategic. They can advocate with higher leadership, or they can make a calm decision about something that they know will help others. Remembering also that for them, when their team is well, their job is easier, and actually everything is better. And so why wouldn't a leader want to engage in it? It's a chance to make themselves look good. The other thing is to make some kind of warm introduction. Send an email connecting people. Whatever it is, set up a phone call together and you connect people, and then it can take on a life of its own. And I will say that most of the funded programs that I have led have started because one physician worked with me and took the idea back to their team, shared it, invited others to join in, invited leadership to join in, and then it took off from there. So step 4 is to offer to be the liaison. Offer to be the ones. If you have participated in something, you offer to be the liaison. And of course, when you do this with me, you don't actually have to do that much. Now, in some settings, you might have to, or there might be no admin support. And then you have to decide whether you have capacity to do it. But this is the beautiful thing, and it's actually worth selling this as part of your pitch, that if you work with someone who's done this, they can do it. It's sort of all you have to do is get the funds, and then you can go back to doing your work, and leaders can put their attention on something else. And so when you are offering to set it up, making the connections, etc., it's makes it much more likely to happen. And I think many times we think that securing funding is complicated, but it isn't necessarily. You just have to get creative. You do have to write a good grant, and you have to know how to write a good grant. And so that is a learned skill, but it's not that complicated. It's really learning about advocating, marketing, speaking. I'm going to do another podcast in the next few weeks about business and marketing. Every physician needs to know this, whether you're advocating for wellness, whether you're advocating for your patients, whether you're advocating for yourself. And so grant writing, it's not as complicated as all the grants you write for the federal government. It's leaning into your story, why it helped you, and what's the benefit for your teams. And I will say that if you are outsourcing to someone who will do the wellness for you, like me, then of course you can get that help from someone who has written grants and who has advocated. Now, that takes time, and that does kind of need to be built into the grant itself. That's part of the cost of doing effective wellness. But very often it's that bit of the cost is pretty insignificant compared to the cost of the whole thing. And it's really important because otherwise it doesn't happen. And then you continue to suffer, your colleagues continue to suffer, your patients don't get as good care, people leave, you're short-staffed, and the cycle continues on and on. The culture doesn't change. So it's not as hard as you think. And just a reminder, as I went through it, you have to believe it's possible. You have to engage in it yourself, be a product of the product you're pitching. You have to share your experience. You have to invite leadership in, let them experience it. It's much easier to advocate from an experiential space of something that really helped you, from personal stories. And then you take the idea back, your chief takes the idea back, and then you offer to help set it up, make the connections, whatever it is. There's also lots of ways to fund things in different ways. So say you can't get a grant. I mentioned a couple of other ideas. thinking about departments often have discretionary funds. I'm a former department chief, and there are different things that go in different categories. But because wellness actually impacts every single bit of your functioning, it impacts productivity, it impacts performance. It can be part of a performance improvement project. Some people have those types of things. It can be part of the patient care experience. So leaning into different funds and different parts of the hospital that may have funding. There can be physician development funding. It doesn't have to be a grant or a philanthropy grant. It does always take a proposal, and it takes good advocacy. But department funds have funds already allocated for wellness. Sometimes you have to ask. Sometimes you have to be the person, look, if there's funds, I can make it happen. And then things happen. Wellness committees also have funds, and they can often fully support or partially support things. So leaning into finding out, do you have wellness budgets? Do you have a committee that has budgets? One thing to say there is if you're using non-departmental wellness funds, you really have to make something that's accessible to all and the whole medical center, because if you're using medical center funds, your offering needs to be for both. So sometimes it's easier to get something for a larger pool where anyone who's interested could come to the limits of whatever the program is. And that is a way to get it funded. Sometimes people will do what I call combination funding, where you maybe get a deposit, someone who's either willing to do it personally, who wants to be part of the program, or you have your wellness committee put the deposit down, or the department puts the deposit down, and then everyone else pays in, and you get CME, and you can get reimbursement through CME funds, for example. That's another way to do it. I call it cost sharing. This model has actually funded quite a few different things that I've offered. It takes more work. And you don't always have success if you can't get enough people to decide to sign up. But if you have a big offering, or sometimes if you have a small offering, but it's just this one department, there's more interest in people gathering together to make those connections. And so you have a better chance of success. So the other way you can do this, and that has worked actually for both retreats and group coaching programs as a way to sort of cost share. If you have no cost sharing, you can actually do it without any committee thing. Everyone can just pool their education funds if you have that, and pay into it. It's more expensive that way for the individuals, but it's still possible, and you can do it that way for small departments quite effectively. And I've seen this happen quite a few times. It does take someone taking the lead and someone willing to put down a bit of a deposit, though it doesn't always have to be too much, but it does take that person being the front person and the person who really encourages people to come. Very often that person is not in leadership. It could simply be you. And if you are passionate and you have experienced it yourself, it's very easy to advocate. Or if you're someone, I've had some people who knew me from previous roles, for example, and they know the person personally, it's also easier to advocate. So that's one way to do it. And then sometimes people just go and do it themselves if you can't get funding. I think often we think, I can't do it because I'm out of CME funds, or I can't do it because my department won't support it, or we can't do it because our institution isn't prioritizing wellness, and then we do no wellness. And that is the backwards way to do it. Do it on your own because you're worth it. And after you are worth it and you begin to change, they begin to see the light. Some places, not as quickly as others. And if you work for a place who really never sees the light, that's good information, good data to help you make a decision. But very often people will just go and do it themselves, because when you go and do it yourself, you come back as the model of change. People used to ask me like, oh, what have you done? What are you doing that's led to change? And you are the model. And when you model it, other people are interested and start asking questions. Another way to do this to start is to do something like a talk and bringing some kind of wellness to the conference. And then people say, oh, well, we'd really like to do more of that. And that leads to something else. So those are my thoughts on funding, and there are lots of ways to do it. I want to lean into not the scarcity of funds, which is what we always talk about in medicine, but the abundance of options, the abundance of creativity here. If you're determined to have wellness happen, there are lots of ways to approach it. Some places it happens faster, some places it happens slower, but you are all really brilliant, smart people who are resourceful, and you can make things happen. And I have seen time and time again, the energy and effort and money that you put into wellness pays itself back in spades, even if you pay for it out of pocket. Many people change jobs and make more money. Many people stop doing free labor and get back time with their family, one of the things that they value the most. So I did want to spend a moment before I move on to other things to talk about what makes a meaningful wellness program. Because not all wellness programs work, not all wellness initiatives work. And I really do think it takes outside the box thinking and it takes creativity. And very often people don't want to pay for wellness because they have paid for ineffective wellness in the past. It didn't make a difference. And so therefore they don't want to spend the money, and or people are grumpy because things they've offered didn't make a difference. And so it is really, really important to create a program that actually makes real impact and to pitch a program that's going to make real impact. And not all programs do. So you want to take whatever you're doing, the focus of it to be, how can this make an impact beyond just the retreat day? The retreat day is nice. Everyone feels excited and connected. Morale is boosted. But you want to be sending people home with practical tools that actually work, that they can actually use, that don't take too much time. So it's not just an hour-long webinar. It's not just the day. It is they're leaving with a toolbox of skills, or at least one skill that they can take back, something that they're going to change. And when you come with your team, you have accountability. When you come to a retreat with a friend, you have someone else who speaks the same language, and that becomes a lot easier. I also think, as someone who leads these programs, that it's really important for you to tell people that that's your intention. Your intention is not just to be there for the day. The intention is to actually have change. And I often say the intention is also for it to be restorative and experiential. Very often it's not lecturing, it's not PowerPoint, it's people experiencing wellness so that they know what wellness feels like, as I like to say, on a cellular level. So that means that the environment is super important. And that's one of the reasons that I do retreats where I do. All of the places are very specifically chosen to have a restorative environment in nature, without rooms with no windows, without big buffets. And it's why I weave in experiential mindfulness, breathing, movement, and healthy food. It's really experiencing it and finding restoration at a cellular level. And when people feel wellness, they can't unfeel it later. You also need to have a program that fosters connection and community. Physician burnout, we know community and connection are protective against that. We know that those connections and people having a shared experience means that it lasts longer than that day, because then when they see that person, they have a connection with them. They have the shared memory of that day. And often the connections and community that people make when they're in this setting, they continue to stay connected to those people. In my smaller retreats, which are not grant funded and not institutional, people will stay connected for years. And people make new friends. And one of the biggest things that we struggle with in medicine is a sense of not belonging, lack of community, and a sense of isolation and feeling alone. And so a meaningful wellness program takes that into account. It is not online. It is, it can be online if you are building community. So for me, like small group coaching really leans into community. One-on-one coaching is still meaningful wellness, but not necessarily like an institutional or a team program. It can be if multiple people are doing it side by side and they know that they're doing it side by side, and or they're doing it in small groups, that actually can be quite meaningful. The other thing that I think is really integral to a meaningful program is to be inspirational, to bring hope, um, to stay out of guilt, shame, blame. It's not about forced self-care. We stay out of the right and wrong. There's no right way to do wellness. There's things that work for some people. It's very personalized and offers options, recognizing the uniqueness of the individuals, the uniqueness of our backgrounds, the uniqueness of our families, because wellness is not a one size fits all, it never has been. And one of the biggest challenges we have in medicine is that they talk about how being a physician is the same, and everyone can do this, and everyone can see a patient in 15 minutes, and everyone should be able to do this. And oftentimes we're replaceable, or they can see any of your colleagues. They're exactly the same. And that takes away this sense of pride in who we are. It's not that our colleagues aren't also good doctors, but they are different. And so recognizing you want to bring inspiration, you want to bring hope, you want to show up valuing people, you want to show up motivating people, not with negative energy, but with positive energy. I always like to think, how do you want people to feel? That's how you want to show up. You don't want people to go home thinking burnout is this terrible thing and they must do something or they have to change. You want people to go home wanting to, choosing to, getting to do new things that feel amazing. And that's, again, the tease, right? If you experience the things that feel amazing, they want to keep doing them. So you're giving them a taste of different things. You're teaching them how good it feels to eat plant-forward vegetarian food. How good does it feel to eat mindfully? How amazing does it feel to have sound healing? How amazing does it feel to forest bathe? How amazing does it feel to talk about really good, important stuff and to recognize that you belong? Letting them feel that, and that's what they carry with them. The other piece of a meaningful wellness program is that leadership has to buy in. And I talked about that at the beginning. So having leadership come and not just support it and not just pay for it, but the chief or the chair should come. Oftentimes they're like, I want to make space for other people. That sends a powerful message. They need to show up and be as much a part of the experience as anyone else. Oftentimes people say they want to audit it. I'm like, nope, show up as a participant, be a human, share your common humanity. Common humanity is key to self-compassion, which is something we struggle with. Leaders need to show up being human, being the physicians, being on the team, not just the leader of the team, but also on the team. It's a powerful impact when leaders attend. And when leaders have attended, they can also advocate more effectively in the future for more wellness programs. They understand the language. They can then carry forth these learnings to lead their department with a lens to wellness, lead their department with what they learned. Everyone's speaking the same language. And so then the thread of the day or the program, whether it's a virtual coaching program, whether it's an in-person experience, can carry forth through the department, leading to more change and more change. And one of the things people often say about wellness is, well, we talked about it in that day and nothing ever happened. So by leaders coming and being a part of it, things do begin to shift. And that's a really, really powerful. And then a meaningful wellness program leads to healthier physicians and carers and healers. That leads to healthier patient outcomes. It leads to healthier advocacy for more programs. And so a meaningful program isn't just meaningful to that day. It actually impacts what happens afterwards. And that is how you get things funded in the future, is because they have impact. And sometimes we can measure it, sometimes we can't measure it. And I would say don't always get fixated on using the burnout survey or anything like that. I have found that real testimonials, real words. Would you recommend this? What would you tell people about the day? What would you tell your leaders about why this day was helpful or meaningful? How is this day going to help you with patient care? How is this day going to help you with things that they care about? That is the key thing in terms of getting funding. So final takeaways: believe it's possible. Engage in wellness yourself. Invite leadership in. Offer to set it up to the best of your ability or connect them with me to set it up. Explore creative, funding. So philanthropy grants, department funding, wellness budgets, CME funding, patient care experience funding. There's often funding in leadership development, physician education, communication funding. There's so many different ways to fund wellness. So if you think about outside the box, often wellness is the least well-funded thing. And also this idea of wellness is a little bit of a garbage bag term. I hate to say that. But if you're thinking about it that way, what will this program help with? And then look to those areas for funding. It's really pretty magical. So as physicians, we deserve wellness that's more than just token wellness. We deserve programs that work. And in an ideal world, we deserve having them funded by our organizations. And I encourage you all to jump in first on your own. And that is rarely funded by your organization. And that's okay. I think many times we're like, well, they won't fund it, so I'm not going to do it. I'm like, you're worth doing it yourself. And if you think about what it could lead to, it's an investment in yourself. It's an investment in your team. It's an investment in liking the job you have, which hopefully is like worthy of liking. It's an investment in changing. If what you learn through this is that you value yourself and this place is out of alignment for you, that is amazing information. You are wasting tons of money by doing things that aren't well. Your health, for example, is a huge future cost. And there's lots of information about how when we are not well and we're in a place that doesn't fit, it's very expensive, energetically, emotionally, and for our health. And so I really strongly encourage you to jump in, do it yourself. You put out first, and we always don't want to. Why do I have to pay to do this? Do it for you, and then you will see you may end up getting it back in spades. And many people who I've seen have done this have organized a program and then gotten a huge promotion and then gotten to do something else they really wanted to do. And so you will never know what it will lead to. And it's really a win-win for you because you also get to attend. So if you're interested in having me do wellness for your team, whether you are local or far away, it's going to look different. Reach out because I believe it can happen. I know it can happen. And what I have discovered now that more and more of these programs are getting funded is that when you present a program that is proven, has proof of concept, people are much more likely to invest in it and pay for it. And so it's already existing, and then you modify it and personalize it for your group. And you can do that in lots of different settings. But recognizing that wellness just isn't something that, oh, we just do and I'll just do it because it sounds fun. It's actually one of the most strategic things that we do in medicine. And it takes a lot of thought and creativity and resourcefulness to get it funded. And it is also the thing that gives the biggest return on investment for you personally, for your team, for your patients, and for bigger organizations. And so when you present it in that way, things look a lot better. So thank you all so much for listening. I hope that there's some pearls of wisdom in here that serve you well. And remembering that part of what we do here is throw out lots of ideas. They won't all work. You have to know your own organization and you have to be creative. And just because someone says no doesn't mean no forever. It means not now, not yet, or not like that. And I always remember that you have to plant the seed. Sometimes you plant the seed and it takes a while. These things don't happen overnight. People don't just say, oh, yes, I'd love to spend money on that overnight. But if you're helping them solve a problem, they do want to spend money, and it usually takes longer than you think it should. Sometimes, though, you also want to strike when the iron is hot, when there's a need. They need a need met. You're under stress about some specific metric not being met. You can offer wellness as the answer. It's a beautiful opportunity. And so take what's useful, let go of what's not useful. Remember that nothing in this podcast is ever medical advice. And they're really just our own personal thoughts and wisdom and experience. We thank you guys all so much for being our loyal listeners. And we would super, super appreciate it if you would share the podcast and help us grow it. We know that over this almost 250 episodes, we have offered a tremendous amount of wisdom, guidance, and I hope great ideas shared from the heart. I believe, and I hear from many, many people who reach out that this podcast has changed their life. And I would be just so grateful if you would share it, spread the wealth, let other people know about it as a benevolent action. And remember that it will also potentially help you. If there are people in your circle, helping them will help you. And if nothing else, you will help us. And we give week after week in this podcast, and we would love it if you would help us share and have more people discover it. And a final reminder, if you are interested in bringing a wellness program from Pause and Presence to your group, reach out. Have an amazing week. Thanks for listening. Talk soon.
Thanks so much for joining us.
We encourage you to dive into the show notes for each episode for more learnings and resources.
We also invite you to take a listen to the many other Mindful Healers podcast episodes, and please share the podcast far and wide with colleagues, friends, and family.
If our message and approach resonate with you, we would love to work with you.
When you listen to a podcast, you consume information, but when you work with us, you can actually practice and change.
We offer coaching and mindfulness experiences, talks, workshops, retreats, and more. Connect with us at themindfulhealerspodcast.com.
The content of this podcast is not medical or life advice. We invite you to participate in the mindful moments we offer at the end of most of our podcasts, but please only do so safely.
Welcome to today's mindful moment. Today's moment is going to be growing calm and grounded, growing courage, and getting into a physical space where you can advocate from the heart cleanly, clearly, and effectively. So we will begin by finding your breath. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Bringing mind, body, spirit, and soul all into one space. If you are seated, notice your sit bones on the chair. If you're standing, notice the soles of your feet on the floor. Grow tall towards the sky and take another big breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And if it's safe, you can close your eyes and bring a hand to heart and another hand to top, connecting with your heart space and what you know to be true. Checking in with whether you have a desire to feel better, whether you want to make your practice feel better for you, feel better for your colleagues, whether it's important to you to have things run more efficiently, whether it's important to you to change the culture where you are. There isn't a right answer here. It might not be. As you sit here, hand to heart, breathing, your authentic self might say those things are important, but they're not important for me to do. It may not be that this is you, or it may be that this lights you up and you want to share and you want to be a part of the solution. And if that is you, take in a breath and ask yourself if you believe it's possible to advocate effectively for wellness where you are. Exhale long and smooth. Remembering a longer exhale activates the parasympathetic nervous system, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Let it feel good. And ask yourself what you need to do to invest in your own wellness. Do you want to do coaching? Do you want to come to a retreat? Are you already well? Are you ready to be an advocate? Have you already done those things? What is your personal story? How could you use your personal experience with this podcast or with partaking of something with myself or Ni Chang? What's your journey? What has worked for you? What might you like to share with your colleagues, with your leader? And if you are the leader, what might you like to share with your team? What might you like to share with higher leaders? What would feel good? And notice I haven't said, what do you need to share? What do you have to share? What should you share? It's what do you want to share? What would you choose to share? What would be fun to share? Letting yourself sit and enjoy. Let it feel good. Listen for the answer to that question. And decide what is aligned for you. How would it feel to begin to advocate? What energy would you like to bring to your advocacy? Do you bring scarcity and not fairness, and it should be different to the conversation? Or do you bring calm and grounded and knowing and believing and trusting? Do you bring hope to the conversation? Do you bring inspiration to the conversation? Do you bring motivation to the conversation? You choose. And as you sit, hand to heart, eyes closed, if that's safe for you, asking yourself what your next step is. What's one step that you could do? What would the you a year from now wish you had done about advocating for bringing wellness to your department or your institution or yourself? Letting that be seen. It might be a project for today. It might be a project for another day. No judgment. Just knowing when you're ready, it's there. Taking in another big deep breath, enjoying the calm at the cellular level. Send it to fingertips, toes. Exhale, let it out. Let your cells in every nook and cranny enjoy the oxytocin of the hand on hand. Let them enjoy the skin to skin of the top hand on the bottom hand, melting that cortisol. Let them enjoy the oxygen. Let them enjoy the space. Let them enjoy the calm. Noticing your heart, sending this next breath to wrap the heart. Give it a slight hug. Exhale, let it out. Sending yourself compassion for the journey, wherever you are. Letting that be seen. Appreciating yourself for all that you have done thus far. Knowing that's enough. And if you want to do more, what thoughts inspire you? What future might you like to see? What if you were the one who brought something amazing to your colleagues and those you work with? What if you were the one who helped make something that actually made a difference happen? How would that feel? And if that sounds fun to you, dive in. And if it sounds overwhelming, wait until you have capacity. Take care of your own wellness first. Get to the point where you can breathe. Do your own work. And when you feel better, ask the question again. When you're able to show up as a model. when you're able to show how it works, how things changed, what's possible, that's your moment to advocate. It starts with you. One more big breath, letting it out, lowering hands, open eyes. Take a moment to accommodate, gift yourself that. Thank you all so much for practicing with me today, and we'll see you next week.